Good morning, everyone. I hope that you have had a wonderful Christmas and whatever holiday break and that you've had a good time. I certainly had a nice time having a bit of a break from things, kind of pondering things and seeing what I wanted to do next. And yeah, today I feel like I say this every week, but I believe it's true every week, that I have an exciting update for you all, which is that I have made a GUI for Jugglebot. New year, new GUI, which I'm very happy about because using the terminal and the command line is kind of annoying. So I reckon let's just get straight into it actually. I think I can keep me in the corner here. Yeah, so for anyone who's unfamiliar with robot control, if you don't have a UI, so UI stands for user interface, GUI, GUI stands for graphical user interface. Both of these I'm kind of using as interchangeably at this point, to be honest. It doesn't really matter for me. But if you don't have one of these, then you have to control the robot just over the command line, which is what you see. Like if you imagine like a hacker, that's what the command line is. And that's kind of annoying to do because you need to know just the right command and you need to enter it in just the right way. And if you do something just wrong, then you could like crash the whole system if you stuff up badly enough. It's pretty unlikely for that to happen, but it's still annoying to do that because, for example, one of the commands that you have to enter to just send a message looks like this. ROS2 topic pub, topic name, message type, which is its whole thing, and then the message value. And you have to make sure that the type of the message is correct, otherwise it won't get sent, and you have to make sure that the value of your message makes sense so that the things receiving it can actually do something with it. And this is just such a pain in the ass. It's really annoying. I say it gets old really fast, but to be honest, I actually don't think I ever sent this command over the command line. I don't remember ever bothering to do that. I just remember seeing it and being like, no, I'm not going to do that. And if anyone had a look at my code at any point over the last couple of weeks, you would have seen there were a couple points where I was just hard coding things that probably shouldn't have been hard coded. Like, for example, clearing the errors in the O drives. So the O drives are the controllers that control my motors, and I had hard-coded in there that when the whole system boots up, it just wipes all of the errors from those controllers. And these errors can be things like the motor's going too fast or the current exceeding the limits or anything like that. And I would just wipe them by default, even if there weren't any. And that's obviously not the best practice to get into because those errors can be useful and actually sometimes are meaningful because there is a genuine error that will persist across like reboots. Yes, that's not the best practice to get into. And I had a few things like that, and it would be good if I could have some way that I could actually choose to send that command rather than just having it go by default. So this is part of the reason why the terminal was annoying. It's also really hard to read the data coming from the robot. So I might want to know things like how much current is in all of the motors, and I can't easily see that. I can get it to be displayed to the terminal, but that's not really, like, I'm not a robot. I can't pass that information before it's been overwritten by something else, and the terminal window is only so big. So it's really hard to see that sort of information. It would be really good to see stuff like that in a plot, so you can just see how it's changing over time. You can get more meaningful understanding of what's actually going on there. Yeah, the command CLI stands for command line interface. It does make me feel pretty hackery, but a GUI is just so much nicer. So much nicer to just interact with, especially given the context that I'm making YouTube videos about this sort of thing. And it's really nice to be able to just show a nice user interface that I can use myself and also just stream and have everyone be on the same page about what's going on. It's much more transparent, much more clear and easy to interpret. And yep, so I just had to rearrange my windows. Cool. So let's go through part of the process that I had to go through to get here. I mentioned in my last live stream, I believe, that I was considering doing this. I was kind of considering two branches. One of the branches was making this UI, and there were a bunch of suggestions of different software that I could use. And it turns out that ROS, I mean, perhaps unsurprisingly for anyone who's in the industry, but ROS is used by a lot of roboticists, and unsurprisingly, many of those roboticists need UIs to see what's going on with their robot. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any that perfectly fit what I want to do. I want to have a specific set of things in my UI, which I'll show you in a sec. And I couldn't find anything that would do all of that. There were some really, really cool ones for like self-driving cars that could visualize all of the LiDAR data and that sort of thing. And really nice ones for like warehouse packing robots and that sort of stuff. But nothing that did quite what I want to do, that quite had the flexibility to suit Jugglebot, which is, in fairness, a fairly niche robot. Yeah, so I ended up choosing Robot Web Tools, thanks to a suggestion from Joshua on Zulip. And this involves hosting the UI in a browser, which requires using 3 programming languages. One is HTML, which structures the whole UI. Another one is CSS, that styles everything, so you can put everything in nice boxes and like make the buttons look all pretty and everything. And also JavaScript for clicking on buttons and also for plotting and that sort of thing. The only problem is that I have had zero experience with any of these languages. I think I might have like touched a tiny bit of HTML in like year 8, but that's gone. No chance of that anymore. But thankfully, ChatGPT does. ChatGPT has lots of experience in all of these languages and more. However, some supervision is required, as anyone who is programming with ChatGPT is probably well aware. The biggest example of this is that I had a memory leak in my UI. And what this basically means is that as the UI was open for over time, the longer that I had it open for, the more resources it was taking on my computer, because what it was supposed to be doing is every time something is removed from the UI, particularly for the 3D plot, it's supposed to actually be fully deleted, gone, we don't need it anymore. But for some reason, things weren't being cleared properly, so they were just kind of building up and building up and building up. And I would just have to refresh the UI like every 10 minutes or so before the whole computer crashed. And then thankfully, Chromium was able to pick it up and just like crash the tab. But until it crashed the tab, there was a period of like 2 or 3 minutes where I basically just couldn't use the Jetson until Chromium picked it up and closed the tab. And I spoke with a software engineer friend about this, and he was like, "You're having a memory leak? How are you having a memory leak? Memory leaks aren't a thing in like modern programming," which is apparently the case. But it turns out that ChatGPT had led me down the wrong path, and it didn't have the awareness to think, hang on, should you really be doing this? I would be asking it, okay, how do we delete things from a 3JS scene? And it would say, yeah, cool, I can help you do that. And it did it, and it was fine, but it never thought to think, you shouldn't actually be doing that. You should instead be just updating their positions so that you just make a set of objects in your scene, and then once they're made, you update where they are. You just move them rather than deleting it and then recreating it in a very adjacent spot, which is what I was trying to do before. Yeah, lesson learned, I guess. I don't really know what I can do differently about that, but you got to be really careful about ChatGPT, especially if you're using it for languages that you're unfamiliar with. And yeah, diagnosing that memory leak was very tricky, and I ended up just having to completely do a different approach, which worked, and it's good, but yeah, be wary is all I recommend. So before I jumped too far into actually creating this UI, I wanted to have a careful think about what I wanted in the UI. And the first thing I thought of is some buttons that I can use to send the commands, like the ones that I mentioned before. So a good one would be to home the robot so that I can have everything set up, and then when I'm ready, I can press the home button and then it will do its thing. This is much better than before when I had hard-coded home into the sequence and I had to just kind of stand by ready and press home and then like jump over and make sure the robot didn't like kill itself. Because if the homing sequence is done when Jugglebot is in the wrong position, it can end up in some really strange situations. But now I can just tell it to home as soon as I'm ready for it to home, which is very nice. I've got another one for ending the session so that when I'm done with the robot, or I want another one, I should say at this point, so that when I'm done with my session, I can just click that button and then Jugglebot will close down to its lowest position and basically turn everything off. I would like to be able to choose the input type. So for example, right now I'm doing most of the control just with my space mouse, which you'll see soon, a little bit of a spoiler. But I would also like to be able to do other inputs. Like soon, I haven't actually done this yet, but soon I would like to be able to just click a button and have it do a pattern. So I can have a pattern for like move in a circle, or I don't know, do whatever kind of crazy dances or whatever. I can just have a button where I can just click it and then it will start doing that. And then I can just click a different button and it will stop doing that and return to its default position. I planned to use jogging buttons, but I'll talk about that in a sec, actually. I initially thought I would like to have jogging buttons, which are buttons, jogging, I don't know why it's called this, but it's basically when you just move a robot by a small amount in a given direction. So you can like jog it up and it will just move up by like a little bit. And you can just kind of move it around. It's used a lot in CNC machines to like get things positioned correctly. Speaking as someone who doesn't use CNC machines. And I would also like to have a 3D visualization of the robot and the balls once I get to that point, so that I can actually see what is supposed to be happening and then compare that with the actual robot. It will be good as well if I could have some way to kind of disengage Jugglebot itself, so that I could use everything the way that it would be used if the robot was on, but I can do that with the robot off. And that way I can test things, and with this 3D visualization, I can see what would be happening if the robot was on. And I figure this would just be a good way to check things before I run them on the actual robot. Because it's been, I don't know, probably like 4 or 5 months since the robot broke. Maybe not that long. At least 3 or 4 months since anything broke on the robot, and I really want to keep it that way. It's really nice not having to fix things. I love it. I also want a console so that I can see the logs that are produced by ROS, because these logs are generally fairly useful. Like, these are things that I am putting into the code so that when certain events happen, these events are logged and I can see, okay, cool, all of the motors have been homed, or, oh, there's an error here, or anything like that. I want to be able to see that in my UI clearly, plain as day. And I would also like to be able to see statistics on the messages that are getting passed across the ROS network, so that I can make sure that everything is working properly, basically. And I can see that the robot is actually connected, and I can just make sure that everything is, yeah, working the way that it's supposed to work. The last thing that I would really love to have is a time series plot, so that I can, my ideal imagination of this is that I could have a plot down the bottom that has all sorts of lines going through it, and then I could choose on the side what I want to be plotted. So for example, one thing could be the lengths of the legs, and I could see them in real time as they are going up and down. And another one would be the currents in the motors, so that I can make sure that the currents aren't doing anything weird, basically. That'd be really cool. There are probably some other things that I would also include in here, like maybe the encoder positions, and I can compare them against the predicted leg lengths, that sort of thing. That would be very nice. So I want to show you what I have actually done here. So right now, because it's hosted on a web page, I have to run this server and then a ROS bridge to connect my ROS network to the like HTML page, and then run, oh, it's not actually on. Give me a sec. I'm gonna move my camera so that you guys can see the robot too. So what that was, when the robot first turns on, it powers all of the motors. Let me put me back in. When the robot first turns on, the motors don't know where they are, and they have to turn a little bit so that they can find what's called an index pulse. And once they've found that index, then they know where they are and they're all happy. This is a little bit annoying because it means that when I first turn the robot on, I have to make sure that I lift it up a little bit from its base, because the motors don't know which way they're going to turn. As far as I'm aware, they don't seem to always turn in the same direction to reach that index pulse. And so if the robot is down the whole way when I first turn it on, some of the motors might try to move down even further to find that index pulse and then run into issues. It's a little bit annoying, but it's a lot better than what it was before. All right, so let's go to this screen and let's run the ROS thing again. That's looking good. Now I can go to my page. And this is my UI. So when we first turn it on, let me make it full screen. Hopefully this is fairly legible to you all. Yeah. When I first turn it on, you can see this is my little UI. Let me zoom in a bit. This is my 3D plot, and you can see that there's nothing in here. This is kind of intentional, kind of not. I just want something like a placeholder there so that I can see that the robot is not like on and running. Down here, I've made my camera too big. Down here, I've got my console, and I can see all of the messages that are being printed over the ROS network. I've got all my buttons, and I've got my topic statistics up the top here. Hopefully this is visible. And yeah, so we're all ready. Robot is on and looking good, so I can click home, and it runs through its homing sequence. And we can see in our logs that as each motor gets homed, it says motor 1 homed, motor 2 homed, blah, blah, blah. And now it's all ready. It's in closed loop control, and I can see all of what all the motors are doing. And still, nothing is here. Kind of intentional, kind of not. But when I want to control it with my space mouse, I can click the switch to space mouse control button, and then it turns on. And now we have this nice animation. So as I move, let me try to orient it the same way. Yeah. So as I move the space mouse park, you might not be able to see me moving it because you only need to move a very small amount. But the UI updates as the robot moves around. Something I would like to add is adding the acceleration of the actual robot into the UI, because you can see that the UI responds much more quickly than the actual robot does. So it would be cool if I could see what the actual robot was doing in the UI, but maybe I'll do that later. But yeah, this so far is so good. It's really nice being able to see everything. I can choose what level of error messages I want. So if I want to see all the debugging messages, I can do that down here, and I can clear my console if it's getting too messy. It's so good. I really, really like this. I said I would mention this before, but the jogging buttons don't actually do anything right now. So if I switch to GUI control, I intended this to be the jogging buttons, they don't actually do anything. And this is partly because after getting through the UI a little bit, I realized that it's kind of tedious to do this, and I am very unfamiliar with JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. And after getting the main things done, I was like, okay, I need to just prioritize, do the things that I actually care about. And to be honest, I don't see too much utility in the jogging buttons. There's a little bit in terms of finding the limits of the robot, but other than that, I don't see myself using them too much. So I just have removed their functionality essentially. I'm leaving them there in case, because it feels like I don't know, it feels like they might be helpful, but for now they're just disabled. And so now we are done with our session, so I can click end session, and it goes down. Sometimes it has these errors where it overspeeds. I don't know why. I think I showed that last time as well, in the last live stream. Who knows? But yeah, now it's all off. Done. How good is that? Nice UI. And something that I like about this, if anyone's actually familiar with this stuff and knows how to run this on a different PC, I've tried just loading the same HTML page on a different PC that's connected to the same network, but that didn't seem to work. Because it'd be really cool if I could use it on my main monitor here, because so far I've been doing all of my Jugglebot coding stuff on this pissy little screen here, and it's starting to drive me mad. So yeah, that would be good. All right. Now let's have a look at what is next. There's still a little bit of UI work left to do, but it's going to be good once it's done. I figure it's worth putting in the effort to make the UI fully usable so that I can just load it, have it be ready, and have it be perfect before moving on to the next thing, which is to make the robot juggle, which I really want to just do that. But first things first. So yeah, one thing that I want to do is make the UI easier to start, because if you were paying attention to what I was doing when I first set that up, I need 3 terminal consoles to do this. I need to host my server, I need to launch the RosBridge WebSocket, and I need to launch my actual ROS code. This Jugglebot should not be capitalized. Bloody PowerPoint. And if you're curious here, this last when I'm launching my Jugglebot code, the last part is so that I can show the debug console logs in my UI, but not have them clog up my terminal that's actually running the launch code, because I still sometimes return back to that terminal console just to check things. Yeah, so I would really love to be able to make the UI easy to start so that I can just like click a button and have all of this go at once. That'd be really nice. I feel like it is possible, but as I've mentioned before, I don't know much about coding. Another thing I would like to add is the ability to connect and disconnect from Jugglebot without affecting the ROS network. I mentioned this before, and yeah, it'd just be really nice to be able to just turn off the robot for a little bit, test some things out, see what's happening in the 3D visualizer, let's call it that, and then reconnect the robot again afterwards. I'm thinking that to do this, I can just disable the CAN handler node, which is the one that actually communicates with the robot. That's the only node in my ROS network that's actually doing that communication. I'm thinking I can just end that node and then restart it again when I want to, but I've never done anything where I have had nodes leaving and re-entering my network. So I don't really know if there's anything I need to be aware of there. If you have any thoughts, please let me know. But I feel like that should work. As far as I'm aware, it should work. Another thing is that I want to get the topic statistics from ROS rather than just calculating them in the UI. So these statistics are, if I make this bigger, in this table up here. I don't know how easy this was to see before, but we've got all of the topics in my ROS network. These do have Jugglebot / like prepended to them, but I've just removed that because I don't want to see that in all of them. And I can see the last time that a message was posted to that topic, and because we turned the robot off 3 minutes ago maybe, the last message was ages ago. And we can also see how often messages are being posted over the network, over that topic. However, the way that I'm doing this is by every second, or every period that I choose, which is a second right now, a function is run that will check all of the topics that are active on the network, on the ROS network, subscribe to any of the ones that have not already been subscribed to, and then start like recording how often messages are coming through. And this means that this like last message time and message rate, these are based on when the UI receives the message, not based on when the message is actually sent over the network. So if the UI itself is being laggy, like if I was trying some stuff yesterday and it made the UI super, super laggy, then this message rate is just hammered, even though the ROS network itself is actually running fine. So I want to change things around so that I'm getting these statistics from the ROS network itself rather than calculating them in the UI. And it feels like there must be a function for this in ROS, just like a default ROS topic or something that's always running. It feels like there must be, because this seems like something that people would want to do all the time, but I haven't been able to find it yet. But this is also like, I only did these statistics yesterday and I only had this realization this morning that I need to make this change. So I just perhaps haven't looked hard enough yet. I also want to fix the state of the robot so that it's read from ROS rather than being remembered by the UI. And what I mean by this is that right now, when I open the UI, it has a memory of whether the robot has been homed or not. The homing is the particularly important one right now, because if the robot is not homed, I want to make sure that I cannot send signals to it, because it's going to be doing wacky things. And honestly, it probably won't even work, but I just don't want to do that. I want to make sure that I can only send commands to the robot once it has been homed. And yeah, right now I'm just doing that by, if I have homed the robot in the current session of the UI, then it has been homed, and so it's fine. But that doesn't really work if the server shuts down or the ROS bridge, whatever, stuffs up, and I have to refresh the UI, then it doesn't know that the robot has been homed. And that's kind of annoying because, as I said before, I can't home the robot from every position. to elaborate on that, the robot, when it's homing, it goes one leg at a time. And if the robot is up really high and one leg moves down, then the whole thing like tilts over really far and it gets into really strange positions. And I have to kind of be there to help it home, which is a bit annoying to do. Yeah, so I would like to have something so that I would like to rearrange things so that the UI reads the state from the ROS network and then says, the ROS network says that the robot is homed, so it must be. And I'll just take its word for it, even though I haven't homed it in this session of the UI. That's the plan, at least. And you may notice as well that I actually don't have any time series plot in here. And that's kind of annoying, but as I said before, I need to prioritize things. I don't really need the time series plot. It would be nice to have it, but I can't really think of an easy way to do that, again, because I'm not really familiar with these things. And yeah, it's just like a cherry on top sort of feature. And I'm going to focus more on these other things that I've just mentioned. And then at that point, the UI should be just workable and I can just open it up, really easy, connect the robot, disconnect the robot, interact with it very, very easily. And then as soon as that's working, I'm going to just focus on getting the robot to juggle. Or yeah, first up, follow a path so that I can just send it a path, and I want to see how smoothly that can move, and then just go for it and try to juggle. And we'll see how that goes. Yeah, so that's all that I had for this presentation or this live stream. I hope that you have found it interesting. It's definitely been quite a journey to get this UI working. I'm kind of in two minds about the UI right now. I think it's good, it's functional, it's nice, but I know that it's going to be replaced in the next little while. It's going to be replaced at some point for something better, because I know that there are better tools to make a UI like this. I just haven't been able to find the right one yet. And as much as I've been growing, let's say, from the experience of writing this UI, it would be nice to be able to do it a lot faster with like drag and drop things, and just having the UI creating process be a bit more intuitive. Just before I sign off, I would like to say that everything that I've been showing is on GitHub. If you go to the Jugglebot GitHub, which I believe is linked to in the description of this live stream, if you go to the develop branch in ROS _WS or workspace, there's a folder of GUI, and all of this is in here. So the 3D simulation thing is, I think it's called 3D plotter, and the other one is called ROS test, because I called it that at the beginning and haven't been bothered to change it. Yeah, so check that out if you're interested. It's a little bit messy, so I apologize, but it works mostly. Yeah, cool. Well, thank you everyone. I hope that you found that interesting. And if you have any thoughts at all on any of this, then please let me know. I am very well aware that I'm probably doing things wrong here, but I'm just doing them the way that makes sense to me and the way that ChatGPT is funneling me towards, which can be a bit dangerous, as I have experienced. All right. Yeah, I will hopefully see you all next week. And until then, have a good one.